Let me just start by saying I don't automatically hate big game franchises. I like Call of Duty, big budget EA titles, Halo, you name it. Although, maybe I only like Halo because I like Marathon so much. And Marathon is like crack. Only better. Where was I going with this? Man, now I want some crack.
Welcome to the real world.
Last time I said some things, my precious, that were perhaps a bit much. Most people remember Enter the Matrix as a licensed disaster and think of it as being terrible. When I was buying the game, the cashier asked me if I really wanted it and told me it was getting terrible reviews. But I don't hate Enter the Matrix. I actually kinda like it. Before we begin, let's lay some groundwork. Enter the Matrix was developed while the second and third Matrix movies were in production. It was released in 2003 on the same day as Matrix Reloaded. Enter the Matrix isn't just a shitty rehash of the film, though. Okay, it's kind of shitty, but the plot is integral to the story of the trilogy. About 2 full hours of high-quality footage was shot for this game, with all the actors and budget of the films, and even better, all the main characters in Enter the Matrix are voiced, mocapped, and vocapped by the original actors. Enter the Matrix was developed by Shiny Entertainment, best known for... how can I put this? Fuck all? Okay, they did Earthworm Jim and the first MDK, but nobody's heard of those franchises for the last 10 years. It's hard to put the blame squarely on Shiny's shoulders because ETM was written and directed by the Wachowski siblings. Alright, let's go. ETM is one of the earliest PC games I can remember being released on DVD, which is a pretty good idea since it takes 4 CDs to hold all the high-quality FMV sequences. It comes in a great box, and the CD version actually looks much better than the DVD one, which is too bad because I hate swapping discs for installs. The last game I ever bought on CD was Unreal Tournament 2004. 6 freaking discs. The game opens with one of the nice FMV sequences, and we meet our protagonists. Those familiar with the films will recognize Niobe, Captain of the Logos, Ghost, her first mate, and Sparks, their operator. In terms of plot, this takes place right before Matrix Reloaded begins. You have to assault a post office and recover the emergency message the Osiris dropped at the end of the final flight of the Osiris animatrix short.
We didn't have a lot of time. A lot of time. Huh, we don't have a little time.
No time. Gotcha. Since we don't have any time, Niobe dramatically increases the throttle while making a stoic face. Awesome. Before the game properly begins, you must choose to play as Ghost or Niobe. If this sounds like a tough choice, pick Niobe. Their movesets are functionally identical for most intents and purposes. In actual gameplay, they are differentiated only by their motion capture. Both characters go through the same levels as well, but from slightly different perspectives. The big difference is in the vehicle levels. Niobe drives and Ghost shoots. Because of the differing perspectives of the characters, Ghost actually has to suffer through more driving levels than Niobe does. More on this when we get to it. One of the big complaints about Enter the Matrix was that you don't play as the main characters. On every fact, there's always somebody asking, how do you play as Neo? Answer, you can't. More in-depth answer, you really shouldn't want to. Temporarily disregarding the obvious reason why, think about this. What would you do in the game? Either you'd be unstoppable and every encounter would go like this, or you'd be a loser. In the Matrix films, only about 5 minutes of Neo's experience would be fun to play. So unless you want your game to be 6 hours of this, you best shut up and enjoy what you got. My favorite character was barely in the game. You don't see me complaining.
Why do you do that?
Do what?
Check your guns.
You never know. Hume teaches us that no matter how many times you drop a stone and it falls to the floor, you never know what will happen the next time you drop it. It might fall to the floor, but then again it might float to the ceiling.
Sir Isaac Newton tells us otherwise. Let's assume you play as Ghost for some reason. Yeah, I know I said not to, but he's pretty cool and he always jacks in with a pair of handguns. Security is on high alert in this particular post office. Don't look at me. So you get to beat up some people in the lobby. Since pulling a pair of SIG Pros and icing unarmed security guards seems a bit cold, might as well try out the melee combat. Your first fight in Enter the Matrix is a lot like your first time having sex. You don't know what's going on, it's over in 15 seconds, and when you're done there's a pile of dead bodies on the floor and an alarm going off. Right? We've all been there. The big problem here is the controls. When you're not in focus mode, the action is so fast it's hard to follow. Jamming on buttons works, but isn't very satisfying, so you'll probably want to mix it up a bit. The fully mocapped fighting moves look pretty good. The combos are simplistic. You've got a throw, punches, and kicks, and varying between high, medium, and low is mostly just for looks, but there are a huge variety of kill moves. You can hit a button to disarm an enemy, and if you perform a throw move while your gun is drawn, you just outright execute a guy. Depending on the angle of attack and the type of weapon held, disarms and kill moves look different. Actually performing these moves is another problem entirely. Your left-hand control group controls movement and strafing, and the right controls the camera. If ETM had a free camera bound to the right control group and free movement on the left, it would work fine. You'd be able to see the action more easily, and moving would be more fluid in combat. Alternatively, they could have used a full control system, like Oni or that other, better bullet time shooter where the right control group corresponds to aiming. This would have given you perfect control over the gunplay, and it would have worked fine for melee, as Bungie's Oni proved. But no, they went with the greatest hits of the N64 style camera, which takes your input as more of a suggestion. To compensate for the fact that you have almost no control over your character, they made an incredibly aggressive auto-targeting system. Your character picks targets and points their arms automatically, which can result in you shooting enemies that are behind you or mostly off-screen, something which will probably surprise you as much as it does them. Then there are the other controls. Since normally you can't control where you shoot any better than an infant can control when it pees, there's a fine aim mode. Let's assume you're retarded and left this as the default 3. The 3 key puts you into aim mode, and it zooms you in. When you're in fine aim mode, you can't move, and the controls for aiming are super twitchy. And thanks for not showing my gun on screen, making this game look cheaper than... I don't really have a metaphor prepared for this. When you want to leave fine aim mode, you hit the always convenient 4 key. Seriously? Which, incidentally, is the button for zoom out. So, to exit first-person mode, you have to zoom all the way out. It's not like the console version's controlled any better. The default fire key on the Xbox was the black button. I just got totally derailed. Let's assume you're Ghost, pile of dead bodies, mailbox... Oh yeah. You fight your way through sorting rooms and cubicles for a while, and then... brilliant. There's so much backtracking they named a level after it. Ghost eventually finds the correct post box room and collects the dead drop package.
Got it.
He's got it?
He's got it.
He's got it!
He's got it. He's got it.
2 policemen fire tear gas canisters at you and then just sort of stand there while the other 2 cops shoot their guns. Ghost picks up the tear gas shell and throws it back, which really freaks the cops out, even though they're wearing gas masks. In-engine cutscenes always hold up worse than FMV, but this is just something else. Picking up the tear gas shell looks awful. Hell, the tear gas shell looks awful, and the cop shooting at you is even worse. Check this freeze frame. The gun isn't even in his hand! Just when all seems lost, your partner shows up wearing a gas mask and blows the cops away with a shotgun. Those dorks who shot the tear gas and had nothing to do earlier also seem to have no guns, so they charge boldly forward, nightsticks in hand, and Niobe... Can I just tell this story as if we're playing as Ghost? The game takes great pains to always say gender-neutral stuff like, your partner, but I don't want to bother. Okay? Okay. So, Niobe shoots them. Heroic. You think that's brutal? See the rest of the level. Some of the sorting rooms have innocent mail clerks working in them, and you can choke them from behind for a stealth kill. Since you rarely ever get behind enemies, it seems like the only point of the stealth kill is to murder innocent blue pills. Well, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing violently. So hit the focus button while you're choking somebody to escalate it to a full-on neck snap. Ghost makes for the main entrance, but it's locked, so he has to backtrack again to the mail sorting room. They sure got a lot of mileage out of this post office level. To facilitate your escape, Niobe blows up the post office. Okay, what the hell, guys? I know you're fighting a war here, but this is borderline terrorism. Let's run down the list of victims. Cops, who don't know any better. Office drones working double overtime to provide for their families. Mail sorters doing menial work for a living. Yeah, I know it's the Matrix, but when you die in the Matrix, you die in real life. Ghost escapes the building by jumping out a window and onto a passing semi-truck, which looks to be the only vehicle in the city. Then he and Niobe have to drive to the hardline. The big reason to pick Niobe over Ghost is that Niobe's AI can't be trusted to drive itself, so you'll run into cars and get stuck on walls all the damn time. With Ghost covering you, the levels aren't much easier, but his job is pretty simple, so the AI doesn't fuck up as bad. Assuming you don't rage quit because of the shitty vehicle segment, Ghost and Niobe reach the apartment building where the hardline is, and then... You can't kill agents, so it's time to run away. The foot chases are way better than the vehicle levels, but there are still issues. For starters, if you don't know where you're going, you'll make a wrong jump and die. If you go too slow, the agent will catch you, beat you up, and you will die. Otherwise, they do a nice job of showing the tension of being chased, something which very few games do. The level is just one big loop ending exactly where you started. Ghost and Niobe get out of the Matrix and are treated to another FMV. The crew of the Logos watches the recorded message left behind by the Osiris, a story told in more detail in an animated short film that was part of the Animatrix. The juxtaposition of Thaddeus, captain of the Osiris, who is an entirely CGI character in this live-action scene, looks pretty dumb, but then again, that same thing happens all the time in this game.
An army. Their army.
This worrisome development gives Niobe the perfect opportunity to work on her stoic face. That's coming along nicely! The other captains need to be warned of the incoming Sentinel army, which requires making a lot of coded phone calls, so Niobe and Ghost head to the airport to use the payphones. Hey look, the only other car in the world is back! Good to see you again! After making their phone calls, Niobe is interrupted by a call from another ship's operator.
Operator.
Jax.
Niobe, is that you?
One of their crew was captured and taken to the airport, and the rest of the team went in after him.
Here.
Yeah.
Well, that's convenient. Niobe and Ghost split up to help out. This is the first time their missions differ by so much. Niobe goes through the baggage compartments and steam tunnels to get on the plane, and Ghost works his way up to the control tower.
Ghost, it's gonna take too long to backtrack.
That didn't stop you last time.
How's Niobe doing?
She's not dead yet.
Thanks, Sparks. That is supremely useful information. The long corridors of this airport show just how boring this game can get. The longer you look at Ghost's flappy arm running animation, the worse it gets. The mocap's fighting moves are nice and smooth for the most part, even though Ghost does have an odd predilection for backhand slaps. But some of the other animations suck. For some reason, you can change direction in the middle of a shoot dodge, which can be useful for, say, jumping around corners or changing your mind mid-air. I've already mentioned the problem with characters holding guns, but it gets worse. That's not even near his hands. Also, the actions and cutscenes look stiff and sped up cartoonishly. Still not as bad as the CGI from Matrix Reloaded. Anyway, Ghost covers Soren and his team from the control tower, while Niobe runs from an agent in the steam tunnels.
Ghost, where are you?
I'm in the control tower. Are you okay?
I'm not dead.
So that's gonna be a thing? Great. The plane with Axel on it is taxiing, but Ghost pulls off a nearly impossible shot and takes out the tire. So they load him onto another plane, and that whole scene was rendered pointless. There's a mini-boss fight with a helicopter, the second so far, and still hardly worth mentioning, except that this one crashes into the control tower. Soren and Ghost run back up into the raging inferno to scout for transportation.
We'll need a car. There.
Let's go.
He took so long lining up that tire shot, but this time... Niobe catches up to the plane and drives on board, pancaking an agent, but Ghost isn't quick enough. I mentioned that Ghost has to suffer through an extra vehicle level. Ghost drives his shitty car after the plane, dodging a nearly endless cascade of crates falling out the back. I've already established that the driving game is terrible. The controls are twitchy and the car fishtails all over the place. Somehow this level manages to be extremely difficult and extremely boring at the same time. Niobe's version of the level is really cool. She retrieves parachutes for herself and Axel, but before they can escape, the pilot is taken over by an agent. Axel flips you off and then jumps out of the plane, leaving Niobe to fight an agent alone. This is the first real fight in the game. Unlike the last time you encountered agents, you can't just run away. The only way to win is to kick the agent out of the open ramp. Since agents can perform powerful combos and usually can't be thrown, this is a tough fight and probably as close as the game gets to a boss battle. In the whole game, Ghost never really gets to fight agents. Probably because he has a unique set of kill moves that are activated by drawing a gun in combat. By pulling out your gun in combat, Ghost basically cheats and shoots the opponent point blank. Oh, I guess he dodged it. Just another reason to play as Niobe. Slightly less bullshit! Axel lands but is captured by the agent again. Oh, for fuck's sake. He grabs the wheel, causing the car to crash and roll, ejecting the agent but not affecting himself because his seatbelt was on. I'm sorry, but seatbelt or no, I don't think anybody could survive that. Ghost, Niobe, and Axel finally all make it to the hard line.
You know, there's a lot of guys who wouldn't have done what you did. I thank you for it.
You would have.
He abandoned you to die earlier.
I thank you for it.
After Axel and Ghost are both out, the train man shows up to talk to Niobe and alludes to the cycle of rebellion and destruction the Matrix goes through.
72 hours.
What did you just say?
That's exactly how long Zion lasted last time.
Niobe reacts how she always does, with a stoic face. You don't think it might be important that he knows about Zion? That's what I thought.
72 hours.
That's all we got time for now, but join us in part 2 for more stuff. I don't know. FMV and the return of the stoic Niobe face. Would that do it for you? I'll be there. Welcome back. When we left off, the captains were about to meet in the Matrix to discuss the machine army.
Has everyone arrived?
All but the Nebuchadnezzar.
Figures.
We get a scene partially lifted from Reloaded, but because of the actors' contracts or something, all the bits with Morpheus, Neo, and Trinity are totally edited out.
Let's get going, because you know Morpheus is not going to show until after we get started.
There's a handy cutaway showing the machines drilling towards Zion, and when it comes back...
It's the feds.
It's Morpheus! He's in the game! Morpheus is... Oh, he's gone. All of the captains and their crew escape into a sewer. Yay. I guess the sewers aren't a terrible level, but they're bland and confusing and way too long. Ghost and Niobe move from place to place, helping out the other captains and their crew. Technically, a ton of other characters make an appearance here, but they don't say much or anything, and you only get to see them from a distance. Thanks to crappy graphics and the fact that everybody wears sunglasses even underground, you can't even really tell who they are. After helping the others escape, Niobe and Ghost reunite only to be chased by an agent. They're cornered at a dead end with the agent in close pursuit.
And there's no way out.
There's one.
Just kidding. Jeez. What actually happens is the Keymaker shows up and helps them escape to that hallway with lots of doors. The Keymaker explains that they have to take a special key to Neo in order to make the future happen or something. I don't really know. This movie is confusing.
It's a very special key. What does it unlock? The future.
Unfortunately, professional douchebags Cain and Abel show up and steal the key in the smarmiest manner possible.
You didn't think we left that door unlocked by accident, did you?
Uh-huh. I think he did.
Ghost and Niobe follow them back to the Merovingian chateau to get it back, and hopefully punch those smug faces in while they're at it. The chateau is guarded by vamps and Dobermen who work for the Merovingian. As their names imply, they're pretty much just vampires and werewolves and can only be killed by shoving a stake in their hearts. When the level begins, you pass a chair just sitting in a hallway and... Anger issues much? Or he's just collecting a piece of broken wood to kill the bad guys with. This is probably one of the better levels in the game. Vamps and Doberman can't be harmed with guns. Instead, you have to wear them down until you can kill them with a stake-based finishing move. Since they're so tough, the fights last a lot longer than they do against security guards and SWAT, and you actually get to see what the end of your combos look like. While Ghost is fighting folklore monsters, Niobe is captured. A reminder, we're assuming you play as Ghost because that just makes things easier for me. Persephone offers to tell Ghost where she's being held in exchange for a kiss.
I could beat it out of you.
Ghost, you are being offered a kiss by Monica Bellucci. Is there something wrong with you? Ghost's kiss is filled with his unrequited longing for Trinity, whom he can never have, so impressing Persephone that she doesn't even warn the guards he's coming. If you happen to be playing as Niobe, the scene plays out differently. Oh, no, they still kiss. Persephone is way into kissing.
That's hot. That is hot.
But Niobe's unrequited love is for Morpheus. And that's the only difference. Persephone speaks entirely in gender-neutral pronouns, so they didn't have to shoot her scenes twice, and in an effort to make it sound slightly less idiotic, the entire scene is written gender-neutral too.
You're looking for your friend. I see that you care for your friend a great deal, as though you were kissing them.
Now tell me where my friend is.
For Christ's sakes, why did they do that in the shots that have both characters in them? Because it would make the other shots of her saying them and they seem stupid? Then why not just shoot the scene twice? You had a budget of $130 million. You couldn't spring for 5 extra seconds of dialogue? I can tell you are really in love with them. Yes, I sure do love that person. See, it's fucking stupid.
But you will never find them.
So, Ghost rescues Niobe, but smug douche bros Cain and Abel show up. In order to escape, Ghost has to push them against the bars of other cell doors so the prisoners inside can grab them. Really? These two guys are prototype agents from an earlier version of the Matrix. You expect feeble, emaciated prisoners to hold them back? After Ghost incapacitates those two people, see, I can do it too, he runs down a hallway. There are so many hallways in this game. If you move back and forth a lot, Niobe's hands flop around and it's really funny. As they're finally getting away, Ghost throws a rubber sting ball grenade at Cain and Abel. Element. Sting and clear. Go when ready. No, seriously, they go to great lengths to texture it and show it up close so you can see it's a rubber ball grenade. Only to have it explode in a huge fireball. What? On their way out, the Keymaker apologizes for bringing them there early.
I could not foresee that our paths were not meant to cross yet.
So that whole level was a waste of time. The Keymaker is meant to stay in the chateau until Neo shows up later. Who wrote this? Oh, but you're not out of the woods yet. The twins are waiting in the car park.
No one leaves without his permission.
It's time for another vehicle level. And this one is just awful. You can't destroy the twins' car, so your only goal is to shoot innocent bystanders' cars so they don't get in your way. Not that it'll help much, since Niobe is such a terrible driver and can't avoid anything. Ghost and Niobe finally reach the hard line. For what I assume are budget reasons, only half of the scene is FMV, and it's a really disturbing effect. Maybe they could have got some mileage out of it if the entire game had all the Matrix scenes in-engine and all the real-world scenes live-action, but they don't.
Is the exit clean?
As vestal as my bunghole.
Wonderful, Sparks. Wonderful. Back in Zion, Ghost gets a bonus stage that tries to make up for his earlier shady driving level.
Oh.
Trinity interrupts one of his meditations in his personal Zen garden construct, and they have a sparring match.
You've done it again. You'll eat those words and half the rocks in this garden.
Come on, Trent. Make me.
Not only is this a cool fight which lets you try out moves and combos, but Ghost and Trinity have a few scenes together, both in-engine and FMV. This is the kind of stuff that works well alongside the movies, a scene that gives additional backstory to some of the characters. It is the exception, not the rule.
When are we gonna find you a girlfriend?
Like Augustine, I'm dedicated to a higher purpose.
What's that?
Onanism.
Is that why so many saints are blind?
Celibacy's a hands-on job.
Then you get a scene of Jason and Niobe, which is weird since we're playing as Ghost, and when you play as Niobe you don't get Ghost scenes. Jason is a chauvinist prick and lies to the council so Niobe won't have to take part in the ambush against the machines.
How many ships?
All of them. Except yours.
Understandably, Niobe has no reaction to this. Niobe face in profile. We're also treated to a cool but pointless fight scene between Ballard and Seraph. Everybody in the Matrix movies is trying so hard to be cool, it's like a breath of fresh air when somebody actually cool shows up.
You do not truly know someone until you fight them. Come with me.
Only thing you know about me is I was about to kick your ass.
Thanks, Ballard. See you again, never. It's hard to tell where the plot of this game fits into the movies, but this is that part where Bane gets infected by Smith.
Okay. Smith will suffice.
And the new Oracle says some vague shit that's probably supposed to be philosophical.
The path of the one is made by the many.
Unfortunately, the plot is now caught up to the freeway chase from Matrix Reloaded. It's like I'm being punished for something. I've progressed past merely hating driving levels. I now hate driving. I hate cars. It should come as no surprise that this level is awful, and there are more weird hybrid FMV sequences. Driving from Niobe's perspective is boring and twitchy. Gunning from Ghost's perspective is boring and also twitchy. In fact, let's nitpick. The cutscenes have problems with hands, that's been established, but there are also numerous problems with the animations in-game. In the driving sequences, for instance, Ghost is sticking his hand through the fore end of his MP5. The movement is not much better. I've already mentioned the goofy way Ghost runs, but he also looks like a complete tard when climbing ladders. In the chateau levels, Ghost can climb sections of rough walls, which makes him look like a lizard or something. In melee combat, characters rarely seem to make fists, so all punches look like slaps. And when an enemy is controlled by an agent, it looks like somebody's been fucking with the character models in Gary's mod.
Oh, I can't watch this.
Tell me about it. I've killed so much time that the driving level is over. Oh, damn. Neo shows up just long enough to save Morpheus and the Keymaker, and also so they can market this game as having all the core characters in it. Back on the logos, Sparks pleads with Niobe and Ghost not to help Morpheus take out the power plant.
Since your lives obviously mean nothing to you, I ask you to try to think of something that does have meaning. Namely, my life.
Sparks, shut up.
Niobe, meanwhile, broods on the difficulty of the coming mission. Oh, that's good Niobe face.
We blow this thing and then get the hell out of Dodge.
Ghost sneaks into the power plant with a classic bit of misdirection.
Breach in the perimeter fence, section 431.
Any indication on the number of intruders? Yes. Unit 13, please repeat all after yes.
This is it, the penultimate level of the game. Once again, the perspectives of the characters differ somewhat. There are some segments where Ghost provides cover with a sniper rifle so Niobe can advance, which isn't actually as annoying as it sounds. The enemies are elite SWAT units, and a ton of cool guns are available, making for some great shootouts and plenty of disarms and kills. You've got stuff like Glock 18s, UMP-45s, MG-36s, Street Sweepers, and a new toy.
It appears to be some sort of a grenade launcher. What's it doing in a nuclear power plant?
Okay, I've got something.
It's used for nuclear accidents where it's impossible to reach a fire with hoses or fire extinguishers. The gunfire is a pressurized cartridge which explodes, releasing CBM gas.
I see, so you probably need to use this to solve puzzles and put out fires.
One side effect is it causes human lungs to fill with liquid, effectively drowning them.
Come in! Unit 27! Report in!
Our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. There is a ton of action, a lot of it around unstable barrels of fissile material. The sheer number of enemies you kill, often in cruel and unusual ways, is ridiculous and fitting for the final mission.
Anybody there?
Overall, it's a solid level and a really good way to end the game. Except it's not the end of the game. For some reason, Ghost and Niobe have to meet the Oracle, probably so the directors could handwave why she's portrayed by a different actor in Revolutions.
2 programs that I trusted, so the termination code of my original shell to the Merovingian.
How does that make sense? Why would anybody have a kill code for the way they look? Oh no, I had to use my backup Canadian shell. In order to get to the Oracle, you have to fight Seraph, which is kinda cool I guess, but not really worth it. After you leave the Oracle though, you go through an incredibly long and pointless foot chase through Chinatown, evading Agent Smith's. This is probably meant to establish that Agent Smith is taking over the Matrix, but it could have been shown in a cutscene instead of 5 incredibly boring levels. When Ghost gets out, the Logos is attacked by Sentinels, so we have to play another fucking vehicle level. If you're playing as Niobe, it's merely boring, but if you're playing as Ghost, her shitty driving will make you motion sick. You know what? I am not going to dignify this awful level by talking about it. Instead, let's discuss some of the game's general successes and shortcomings. If there's something Enter the Matrix gets right, it's bullet time. It's fundamentally satisfying to pull off moves and take down enemies. The bullet time doesn't work very well for gunfights, mainly because the bullet trail effect is distracting and weird, but for the kill moves in melee combat it has a very Matrixy feel. It's the little details, the ramping effect and that slow motion sound, that add effect to bullet time. The other way it works is more visual. When you're in bullet time, things are obviously slowed down, but you can clearly see the differences in your character's actions. The best way this manifests is in how incredibly fast you can run. Unfortunately, there are a lot of problems with the AI. What difficulty setting you pick has a bearing on how the AI performs, but it still gets broken very easily. Sometimes when you disarm enemies, they just sort of forget what they're supposed to be doing. It's really awkward. Hey. SWAT, huh? How's that working out for you? It's fine. Any news from the other provinces? Nothing that I'd like to talk about. I saw a mud crab the other day. Disgusting creatures. Another problem with the AI is that they don't do much in melee combat. Easier difficulties are worse, with enemies rarely taking the initiative. But if you put the difficulty to normal or hard, the shooting becomes less fun since all the enemies are superhuman bullet sinks and some of the levels are nearly impossible, as if they weren't balanced for higher difficulties at all. Being a big budget licensed game, Enter the Matrix of course had product placement. Pentium processors, Nvidia cards, sure, those are appropriate things for the Matrix. Furthermore, the car Ghost and Niobe drive is a Pontiac, although some coding genius made the default position of the wheel sideways so you can hardly tell what the logo is. By Chevrolet Trucks. And who could forget this?
To keep generating all that energy, your body needs to be replenished. So, drink your Powerade. We have quotas to meet.
As a result of that advertising deal, the office buildings of Enter the Matrix are littered with bright green Powerade machines, which you can activate to acquire bottles of Powerade. You can't drink them. They don't do anything. Let's check back in on that hovercraft level. I've still got some time. One of the complaints about this game was that it was basically required reading for The Matrix Reloaded. Most of the plot of Reloaded doesn't make any sense without the Animatrix and Enter the Matrix, and a lot of the story elements from Revolutions are set up here. The only problem is, Enter the Matrix doesn't make any sense either unless you somehow play the game while watching the movie.
I'm really struggling here. I'm trying to keep up, but I'm losing the plot.
I know what you mean. Now, I don't have a problem with a game acting as supplemental material for a film because I like video games. But not everybody who watched Reloaded was likely to play the game, and lots of people who did were disappointed with the overall quality of it, so you start to see how both Reloaded and Enter the Matrix dragged each other down. Alright, let's wrap it up. They blow the Logos EMP and then wait to be rescued.
What do you think will happen after that?
I don't know. But I got a feeling it's gonna be one hell of a ride.
Great, a trailer for The Matrix Revolutions, because we sure needed more advertising.
It's nice to have something to look forward to.
I've seen it, it's terrible.
Indeed it is.
I just spent more than 20 minutes skewering this game, and I've come to the conclusion that I really like it. I'm sorry, I just do. And before you start jumping to conclusions, I'm not schizophrenic. I just have incredibly poor taste. I don't really like Powerade.